Good morning, gentlemen. Again, I'm coming to you from the Deanship of the Common Year at Majma University. And again, we are doing the English Second Language course, the online version. I am your teacher, Dale Warren. And again, I am taking you for the speaking lesson. And for those who've been following, this is lesson 7. All right, again, a reminder. We are doing teaching videos for listening, for speaking, for reading, and for writing, but not for the conversation classes. We are not doing conversation classes online, so do not worry about those. The textbook, again, is Q Skills for Success, Book 4, the Listening and Speaking book. This book here, the dark blue book with the 4 in the upper corner. And today we are covering direct and indirect speech, which is on page 149. And our homework will be on page 150, exercises A and exercise B, both of them on direct and indirect speech. Okay, so it will be exercises A and B on page 150. When you have done those exercises later, I want you to take a photograph of page 150 on your smartphone and send that homework to your normal speaking teacher. All right, so we are all on page 149, and I need you to turn there in your books to follow with me. It is the section here on direct and indirect speech. Okay. Let us give a few definitions. Direct speech gives the exact words that the speaker uses. And when direct speech is written on the page, we use what we call inverted commas, which are those two little marks over there. That is the opening inverted commas at the start of the direct speech, and that is the closing inverted comma at the end of the direct speech. So you will open with an inverted comma and you will close with an inverted comma. So let us do some examples. Ali said, "I will hit you, Sari." The portion that is direct speech are those words in inverted commas, "I will hit you, Sari." Those are the exact words Ali used. Sali replied, "Then I will hit you back, Ali." The part in direct speech goes from then to Ali. It is those words between the opening inverted comma and the closing inverted comma. Those are the exact words which Sali used. Ahmed said, "I am going to hit both of you." The part from the opening inverted comma to the closing inverted comma, "I am going to hit both of you," those are Ahmed's exact words, those are the words that are direct speech. Ali then answered, I hope you both get coronavirus. Again, the direct speech is the part that starts after the first inverted comma, and it goes to the last inverted comma, which closes after coronavirus. So the exact words Ali used were, I hope you both get coronavirus. Sari said, you are mad. Again, the direct speech, the exact words Sari said, you are mad. So the parts in these examples that I have left in red, I will hit you, Sari. Then I will hit you back, Ali. I am going to hit both of you. I hope you both get coronavirus. You are mad. Those words are the direct speech in these examples. They are the exact words which the speakers used. Now, remember that very important point. When we use direct speech, it gives the exact words of the speaker, and it is marked by those two very important punctuation marks, the inverted comma that opens the direct speech, and then the second inverted comma at the end of the direct speech. And in between those two inverted commas, you get the exact words that Sari or Ali or Ahmed said. All right, that is direct speech. Indirect speech is a longer, more complicated construction. Indirect speech is when the speaker is not there himself and somebody else tells you what he said. So, all right. So, for us to have an example of indirect speech, Ali will say something to Ahmed, and then Ali will go away, and Ahmed will go away, and Sari will then come to me and say, Ali said to Ahmed that he would hit him. Ahmed said to Ali that he would hit him back. It is when the speakers are not there, but somebody else tells you what the speaker has said. All right. The way we make the indirect speech construction is fairly simple. It has three sections to it. It starts with the main clause. It then has the word that, which is not something you have to put in, but which you can put in. So you can use the that if you want, but you do not have to. And then there is a subordinate clause, the third part of the construction. And the subordinate clause is the words that the original speaker had used. Okay, so our main clause, we have a subject and a verb of speaking. Our second element in the construction is just the word that, which we can use to introduce the subordinate clause, but we do not have to use it. And the third component of the construction is what the original person said, what the person said. But sometimes when somebody else tells me what the first person said, he changes the words slightly. So the subordinate clause tells us what the first speaker said, but sometimes the second speaker changes the exact words of the first speaker. All right, that all sounds very complicated, so we're going to do some examples and you will see. So, okay. So Ali and Saleh and Ahmed were having a conversation. And there was a fourth person there called Ziyad. And Ziyad heard what Ali and Saleh and Ahmed were saying. And then he came and told me what they all said. These would be the words that Ziyad would use to tell me what Ali and Saleh and Ahmed said. So we will start with the first example. Ali said that I will hit Saleh. Okay. At this stage, there is no that. Let us leave it in indirect speech. If we start with the example, Ali said, I will hit Saleh. That is the direct speech. Now, to change that over, we will leave the words Ali said. We will then use the term that. We can use that. We don't have to use that, but we can use that. Now, Ali started saying that I will hit Saleh, but if Ziyad is now telling me what Ali said, he won't say Ali said I will hit Saleh. He will say Ali said that he, because Ziyad is now speaking, not Ali. Ali said that he, and the verb will change to put it further into the past, would hit Saleh. And because this is not direct speech again, the inverted commas fall away. So if Ali's exact words were, I will hit Saleh, then Ziyad will say to me, Ali said that he would hit Saleh. Right. Now, if we look at the direct speech, Sally replied, then I will hit Ali back. So, that was exactly what Sally said. But now, Sally is not there and Ziad is telling me what Sally said. So Ziad will say, Sally said that. And because it is no longer direct speech, the inverted commas will fall away. And because Ziad is now speaking, not Sally, the subject changes. The verb changes to put it further into the past. And the last bit remains the same. Sally replied that then he would hit Ali back. Right. Our third example. Ahmed said, I am going to hit both of you. Those were the exact words that Ahmed said. His exact words were, I'm going to hit both of you. But now I am not hearing this from Ahmed. Ziad is telling me what Ahmed says. So when Ziad tells me what Ahmed said, he will say, Ahmed said that, or just Ahmed said and Ahmed's words. When we write it, the inverted commas fall away because it's no longer direct speech. And because it's not Ahmed now speaking, it's Ziad, the subject has to change. Ahmed said, and the verb must go further into the past, that he was going to hit both of them. Remember, Ahmed is not there any longer. He has gone away. Ali has gone away. Sally has gone away. It is simply Ziad telling me Ahmed said that he was going to hit both of them. And we can change all of these sentences and just make them. Ahmed said he would hit Sally. Sally replied that then he would hit Ali back. You can use the that, but it is not compulsory. Ahmed said that he was going to hit both of them, or you can say Ahmed said he was going to hit both of them. With the that or without the that, they are both correct. All right. Example 4. In the direct speech, Ali then answered, I hope you both get coronavirus. Those are the exact words Ali used. I hope you both get coronavirus. It is direct speech, so it has to have those two inverted commas. But now, Ali has gone away. Ziad is telling me what Ali said. So he tells me, Ali then answered that there's no longer inverted commas because it is now indirect speech. And it's no longer Ali speaking, it's now Ziad. So he says he, not I. The verb goes further into the past tense. He hoped. Not you both get coronavirus because Sally and Ahmed are not there any longer. So the subject of the subordinate clause goes to they both get coronavirus. And again, because this is not direct speech any longer, you drop those inverted commas. So, if Ali said, I hope you both get coronavirus. When Ziad comes to me and he tells me what Ali said, he will say, Ali then answered that he hoped they both get coronavirus. The subject changes and the second subject changes, he and they, not I and you, which was the words which Ali used in the direct speech. Okay, our final example. In our final example, Sali said to Ali, "You are mad." Now, Sali has gone, Ali has gone. Ziad is now telling me what Sali said. So Sali said it is no longer direct speech. So those two inverted commas fall away. And it's no longer you because Sali is no longer here speaking. It is Ali. Because Ali is the person Sali was speaking to. Sali said Ali is mad. Okay. There are some changes when we go from direct to indirect speech. The subject pronouns often change. So where Sali said to Ali, Ali, you are mad, instead of using you, the subject now becomes Ali. When Ali answered, I hope you both get coronavirus, that is the direct speech. But when Ziad tells me what Ali said, the subject is no longer I, the subject becomes he. So the subject pronouns often change when we move from the direct to the indirect speech. Where the verb in the main clause is in the past tense, a present tense verb or a future tense verb in the subordinate clause will usually shift to the past tense always. It does not always shift. Okay, the subordinate clause is the bit that I have got in red. So, remember Ali answered that I hope you get coronavirus. Because the verb here answered is in the past, when Ziad told me what Ali said, he didn't say, Ali then answered that he hopes they both get coronavirus. Ali then answered that he hoped in the past tense they both get coronavirus. When Ahmed told us what he was going to do, in the direct speech he said, I am going to hit both of you. But because that verb in the main clause is in the past tense, we shift the verb in the subordinate clause so that it goes into the past tense also. So very often when this verb in the main clause, the verb of speaking, is in the past tense, when we move the direct speech into indirect speech, this verb in the subordinate clause will often move into the past tense also, if it is future tense or if it is present tense in the direct speech. So what happens is that the tense of the main speaking verb will determine the tense of the verb in the subordinate clause. But this does not always happen. If the speaker is saying something that is always true, then very often the verb in the subordinate clause will stay in the present tense, even if the verb in the main clause is in the past tense. So, when we have this last example, what happened was Sali's exact words to Ali were, "You are mad." Now, Sali said was past tense. We will put a that. We will remove the inverted commas and we will put the subject of the subordinate clause, which is Ali. We will move the verb now from the third person are, from the second person are to the third person is. But instead of making that was, we can leave it is in the present tense because Ali is always mad. Ali was mad yesterday, Ali is mad today, and Ali will be mad tomorrow. So if it is something that is always true, then we can leave that verb in the present tense, even if the main verb in the main clause is in the past tense. All right. Our next point that we have to cover with indirect speech is indirect speeches in questions. Indirect speeches in questions use either if or whether to introduce the subordinate clause when it is a yes or no question. Okay. Now, I just want to remind all of you what a yes or no question is, because I think some of you have forgotten it. A yes or no question is a question that expects the answer to be either yes or no. A yes or no question expects an answer where it can either be yes or no. So if we use an example, have you brought your book is a yes or no question, because you can either say yes, I have brought my book, or you can say no, I haven't. Is if I ask, is Rian a good footballer? That is again a yes. or no question, because I can either say, yes, Jan is, or I can say, no, he isn't. Right. So, very simple. Those are yes or no questions. You either say yes in your answer, or you can say no in your answer. But they can only have a yes or no answer. Now, when we are doing yes or no questions in indirect speech, the subordinate clause either is introduced by that word if or the word whether. Either one of them can be used. You can either say if or you can say whether. They mean the same thing in an indirect question. So, what we do need to note with indirect questions is that the word order of the subordinate clause will often change from the word order in the direct speech. The question mark at the end of the direct question now becomes a full stop in indirect speech. Because you are no longer asking a question, you are making a statement. And again, the tense of past tense verbs can change depending on how far in the past the question was asked. So, if we start with these direct questions, all these questions are in direct speech. They are in direct speech because we are giving the exact words that the speaker used, and we are giving those exact words in inverted commas, which tells you this is direct speech. Marv queried, did Awad pass the test? Those words, did Awad pass the test, are Marv's exact words. They are direct speech. Abdul Mohsen asked, did Faisal bring his books? Those words, did Faisal bring his books, are direct speech. They are Abdul Mohsen's exact words, and they are in two inverted commas, the opening inverted comma and the closing inverted comma. They are between those inverted commas to tell you that is direct speech. Sami asked, is Mamdouh a clever student? Sami's exact words were, is Mamdouh a clever student? And to show that is his direct speech, we use those two inverted commas, the first inverted comma before is and the last one after student. Zaid inquired, will Fawaz recover from Verona? Again, it is direct speech. Those are Zaid's exact words. Will Fawaz recover from Corona? And we know they are Zaid's exact words because you have two inverted commas, one before the will, one after Corona, and we know that those words in the inverted commas are direct speech. Now, if we put this into indirect speech, it goes like this. We will start our main clause by saying Marv queried. Then we have to use either one of those two words. You can either say if or you can say whether. So let us just use if in the first example. Marv queried if Awad passed the test or Awad had passed the test. Abdul Mohsen asked, let us use whether in this case, whether Faisal brought or had brought his books. Sami asked, and that is the main clause, and then the question in indirect speech, whether Mamdouh was a good student or is a good student. Zaid inquired if Fawaz would or will recover from Corona. Where there was a question mark in the direct speech, because the person was asking a direct question in the direct speech, we no longer have that in the indirect speech. Because in the indirect speech, it's not has Awad passed the test. Somebody is telling me that Marv asked if Awad had passed the test. So it is no longer a question, it is a statement. Somebody is telling me what Marv had asked, but he's not asking the question himself. The person who is telling me what Marv said is not asking the question himself, he is just telling me Marv said that. So the question mark at the end in direct speech now becomes a full stop. So where in all these direct speech quotations did Awad pass the test? That's a question, there's a question mark. Did Faisal bring his books? A question mark, because did Faisal bring his books is a question. Is Mamdouh a clever student? That is a question. So we have a question mark. Will Fawaz recover from Corona? That is a question. So we have a question mark. Now these are not questions. Marv queried if Awad passed the test. Abdul Mohsen asked whether Faisal had brought his books. Those are now statements, so they have a full stop at the end. Now, when we look at the verb in the subordinate clause. You can either use the present simple form, past, brought, the past simple, past, brought, was, or so forth, or you can use the pluperfect, the past perfect. Here you can use the past simple or the present, and so forth. The way you decide which form of the verb to use depends on how far in the past the person was asking. So if Marv queried last month if I was had passed the test. Okay. Marv queried last month if Abad had passed the test. Because last month is a long time ago, we use the pluperfect. If Marv queried a minute ago, if Abad passed the test. Because a minute ago is just a short time ago, we will use past as the subordinate verb. If he had queried a month ago, it would be had passed. Okay. Abdul Mohsen asked 2 months ago whether Faisal had brought his books. Because it happened 2 months ago, it would be had brought. If Abdul Mohsen asked 2 seconds ago, Abdul Mohsen asked just 2 seconds ago whether Faisal brought his books, then we would make it brought. If it is 2 months ago and it is a long time ago, then that verb in the subordinate clause moves further into the past. So depending on when the action of the main verb took place, if it was just a minute ago, then you would probably use the simple past there. If it was already 2 months ago, two years ago, Abdul Mohsen asked a whole 2 years ago whether Faisal had brought his books. Because that is a long time ago, you will use the past perfect. The tense in the subordinate clause will change according to how long ago it was that the person asked in the main clause. Let us take a look at this last example. Zaid inquired if Fawaz would or will recover from corona. If I said, Zaid inquired 5 minutes ago if Fawaz will recover from the corona, then because it only happened 5 minutes ago, and Fawaz is still sick and we don't know if he's going to recover, I would say Faiz inquired 5 minutes ago Faiz inquired only 5 minutes ago if Fawaz will recover from the corona. Now, let us see how the verb changes. Zaid inquired 2 months back if Fawaz would recover from the corona. Alright, so if you look at these two sentences, they are identical, but inquired, the main verb in the main clause is past tense here, past simple. Inquired in this clause is the same word, past simple tense. But when Zaid inquired only 5 minutes ago if Fawaz will recover from the corona, Fawaz is still sick with the corona, so we will use will. Zaid inquired 2 months back. Put that verb inquired much further back into the past. So because that verb 2 months back is further back in the past than only 5 minutes ago, the verb in the subordinate clause also goes further back into the past. So we will say Zaid inquired only 5 minutes ago if Fawaz will recover from the corona. But we will say Zaid inquired 2 months back if Fawaz would recover from the corona, and we are putting the verb in the subordinate clause further into the past because this verb in the main clause is further back in the past. Now, those are yes and no questions in indirect speech. Information questions follow a similar pattern in indirect speech. Before I go into that pattern, however, I need to remind you all what an information question is. An information question is a question that starts with a question word, like what, how, when, where, or why. So if I said, what is Ziad doing these days? It starts with the question word, what. That makes it an information question. You are asking for information. You are asking for what it is that Ziad is doing these days. If I ask, where is Yazid at the moment? That is an information question. I am starting with the question word, where. So I am asking for information. I am asking for a place. Where is Yazid? I am asking for an activity. What is Ziad doing these days? Those are information questions. Where a yes-no question, you have to answer with yes or no. An information question will give you a piece of information as your answer. So if I say, what is Ziad doing these days? He is working in Tabuk. My answer is a piece of information. Where is Yazid at the moment? He is on holiday in Rome. The answer is a piece of information. It tells me the place that Yazid is at. So where a yes or no question is answered with yes or no, an information question is answered with a piece of information. What is he doing these days? Information question. He is working in Tabuk. That is your answer. It gives the information. Where is Yazid at the moment? That is your information question. And the answer, he is on holiday in Rome. It gives you a piece of information. Now, information questions follow the exact same pattern as yes or no questions, but instead of using if or whether, we simply replace if or whether with the question word. So let us go back to our yes or no questions in indirect speech and see how we can change them to information questions. Alright, so if we look at the way we did the yes-no questions, when we changed them into indirect speech, all we need to do is take that introductory word if or whether and remove it and replace it with a question word. So, Marv queried a minute ago how Abbas passed the test. Abdul Hassan asked a whole 2 years ago when Faisal had brought his books. Sami asked why Mamdouh was a good student, or why Mamdouh is a good student. Zaid inquired only 5 minutes ago how Fawaz will recover from the corona. Zaid inquired 2 months back when Fawaz would recover from the corona. It is very simple. again, you start with your main clause, the subject marv, the asking verb, queried. You then have a question word, how, when, what, where, whom. In this case, we used how. And then you just have the subordinate clause. Others passed the test. Faisal had brought his books. All right. If you look at those particular examples and we move them back to direct questions. Okay. What it was. Again, we would use inverted commas to introduce the direct question. Again, it's a direct question, so it takes a question word, and we close with inverted commas. So our question was, how has Abad passed the test? If we have number 2, what was it? Abdul Mohsen asked. And again, we would open inverted commas to tell you that this is now direct speech. And the question that Abdul Mohsen actually asked 2 years ago would have been, when did Faisal bring his books? And again, it would have a question mark because it is a question in the original direct speech. Zaid inquired, how will Fawaz recover from the corona? Or Zaid inquired, when will Fawaz recover from the corona? In all those cases, because we are giving the direct speech, we use the 2 sets of inverted commas at the start and at the end. to bracket the words indirect speech, the actual words that Mars or Abdul Mohsen used. And again, because they are all asking questions, you would end the section in the direct speech with a question mark, and you will use the verb in the actual form and tense that they used for it in the original question. Okay, our homework for today is on page 150, and it is exercises A and B. So please all go in your book to exercises A and B. All right. Exercise A is pretty simple. It's a listening exercise. What I need you to do, we are going to listen 3 times, and then you must circle either A if the sentence is in direct speech, or B if it is in indirect speech. Okay. If you have any problems, pause the video and go back to the notes on direct and indirect speech so that you can clarify which one is direct speech and which one is indirect speech. Let us start.
Unit 7, Grammar, Activity A. 1.
Ellen said she was excited about the reunion.
2.
She said, I can't wait to get there.
3.
Tanya shouted, I haven't seen you in so long.
4.
She told me she was glad I could come.
5.
Ray called to tell me he would be late.
6.
He said he had missed his bus.
7.
I told Teresa I was bringing dessert.
8.
She said, I hope it has chocolate in it.
All right, we're going to play it again, but remember one of the things that tells you if it is direct or indirect speech is when the subject changes. So if I say, Ahmed said, I'm really glad to see you, that is direct speech because Ahmed said, ah. If I said, Ahmed said that he was really glad to see me, that is indirect because it's now Ahmed becomes he. So I am reporting his speech. All right. Let us listen a second time.
Unit 7, Grammar, Activity A. 1.
Ellen said she was excited about the reunion.
2.
She said, I can't wait to get there.
3.
Tanya shouted, I haven't seen you in so long.
4.
She told me she was glad I could come.
5.
Ray called to tell me he would be late.
6.
He said he had missed his bus.
7.
I told Teresa I was bringing dessert.
8.
She said, I hope it has chocolate in it.
All right.
Unit 7. Grammar. Activity A. 1,
Ellen said she was excited about the reunion.
2,
She said, I can't wait to get there.
3,
Tanya shouted, I haven't seen you in so long.
4,
She told me she was glad I could come.
5,
Ray called to tell me he would be late.
6,
He said he had missed his bus.
7,
I told Teresa I was bringing dessert.
8.
She said, I hope it has chocolate in it.
All right. We need to move on to exercise B. And in exercise B, they are asking us to rewrite the sentences, which are all currently direct speech, into indirect speech. Before we do that, I want us to go through two practical and simple examples. If we look at the examples here, the first one. In the direct speech, Ahmed said, I like Kapsa. So his words in direct speech were, I like Kapsa. They are his exact words, and we know they're in direct speech and they're his exact words because there are inverted commas. The opening inverted comma before like, before I, the closing inverted comma after Kapsa. Now, if we must put that into indirect speech, it would be still the subject, Ahmed, then said. In the next box, we can use the word that, we do not have to. In this box, it's now indirect speech, not direct speech. So we will drop the inverted comma. And because Ahmed is no longer speaking direct speech, somebody else tells me what Ahmed said. The subject is not I any longer. It is he. In this box, the verb is now in the past tense because the main verb in the main clause, said, is in the past tense. And here we have Hapsa, which remains the same, but again, the second inverted comma also falls away because it is no longer Ahmed's exact words. It's no longer direct speech, so there are no inverted commas. Now, in our second example, Ahmed said, coronavirus is dangerous. Again, this is direct speech. Ahmed's exact words are, coronavirus is dangerous. And because it is exactly his words, and because it's direct speech, you use the two inverted commas to open and close the direct speech. The one set of inverted commas before corona, the other set after dangerous. Now, if we have to make this indirect speech, again, the subject of our main clause is Ahmed. Ahmed said. We can use that. We don't have to use that. You can use it or not. It is up to you. The subject here will stay corona. And the verb will stay is. And then the last word will be dangerous. Now, this verb said is in the past tense, but we keep the verb here in the present tense because when the thing you say is always true, the verb in the subordinate clause stays in the present tense. Okay. We will not say Ahmed said corona was dangerous because corona was dangerous yesterday. It is still dangerous today, and it will be dangerous tomorrow and next week. So because the thing we are saying is always true, we keep that verb in the present tense. We keep the second verb in the present tense even when the first verb is in the past tense. All right. If you look at your books, the first example is Mary Tanner said, and then her exact words in direct speech. The list of serendipity stories is as long as the history of discovery. That is her direct speech. The list of serendipity stories is as long as the history of discovery. Now, if we have to change that to indirect speech, we would say, Mary Tanner said, that will stay as our main clause. We can use that if you want to, but you do not have to. And then in the indirect speech, the list of serendipity stories is as long as the history of discovery. The reason we are keeping that verb is in the present tense is because it is always true. It is always true. So we will not say, Mary Tanner said, the list of serendipity stories was as long as the history of discovery. That list yesterday, today, and tomorrow is still going to be as long as the history of discovery. So the second verb will stay in the present tense, even if the main verb said is in the past tense. All right. What I am needing you guys to do is to write your answers into your books, just as I am needing you guys in exercise A to circle whether it is direct or indirect, A or B. And when you have done those two exercises, what I need you to do is take a photo on your smartphone of that page and the top of the next page. And send that photo to whoever is your speaking teacher. That is the homework for this week's speaking unit. Thank you very much, and I will be coming to you again with Unit 8 next week.